Maroons from a compound in St. Elizabeth have thrown their support behind Colonel Richard Curry. The colonel has found himself at the center of controversy after he was spotted with what appeared to be a shotgun during a standoff with the police. But the Maroons we spoke with Friday praised his leadership. They say everything he does is in their best interest.
I think it's time now for us to can do what we're doing freely without people harassing us. Because Maroon, we are the people and our ancestors who fight for the freedom of this country. So everybody on this land of Jamaica, whether they live overseas or they live here, they are benefiting from the fight that we fight to give them their freedom. So I want to say thumbs up to the colonel, stand up for his right, and hope any higher authority doesn't try to use any malicious thought to try to counteract what he's doing.
And I first colonel we ever see them big ups over the whole world. The whole world love him. And as a young youth.
Now, there are lots of questions coming out of this story, like does the police have jurisdiction on Kompong and other Maroon communities? Our legal correspondent, Dion Jackson Miller, has been researching that matter and now joins us live, hopefully with a response, Dion.
Well, Janella, the answer to that question really resides in, is the Maroon territory a state within a state, as they like to say? And when you look at the characteristics of statehood, right, a state has to have a defined geographic territory. It has to have a permanent population, meaning people living there, and organized government. And whereas you might argue that the Maroon community has that, when you look at the definition for sovereignty now, here is the issue. Sovereignty means that you have a state is exercising absolute political power within that territory. Think of lawmaking, for instance, or entering into international relations with other states. And looking at that, I don't see how you can argue that the Maroon community is a state within a state. But the Court of Appeal pronounced on this in 1956. A Maroon was caught on Maroon land with ganja, sounds familiar, and he argued that he can't be tried in the regular courts of the land because of the Maroon Treaty, which said that the Maroons basically can punish one another for offenses committed on Maroon land. The Court of Appeal looked at the treaty, and then they looked at a series of laws passed by the National Assembly after the treaty was signed, which essentially nullified the treaty. And they concluded by saying that someone living in a Maroon settlement is no different from someone living on any other part of the island. And so from a legal perspective, my argument would be, yes, I think the police do have jurisdiction there, but I don't think that's the end of the conversation. I don't think we can end it there.
Where should that conversation now continue to, Dion?
We have to look at it in terms of how we got here. Even the treaty that the Maroons point to, there are Maroon scholars who believe that articles of that treaty had been altered without the knowledge of the Maroons, without their agreement. Remember, they couldn't read or write. In addition, the National Assembly, which passed those laws, nullified the treaty, would have been a racist colonial legislature operating at a time when black people would not have had prominence in society. In 2021, I think we need to have a national conversation. What kind of autonomy should a Maroon community have? And I think certainly they deserve to have autonomy. They're an important community, rich in culture, important in terms of our history. And then I think once we delineate the boundaries of that autonomy, for instance, land, for instance, punishment in relation to various offenses, that then now needs to be legislated by our parliament, a Jamaican parliament in post-independent Jamaica, put into law, and we can move forward as a country from there.
I said it with Dr. Bruce, and I'm going to say it with you. So many issues to discuss,
yes.
So little time, but I think that we got the gist of what you're saying, Dion. Thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime.